Stay with me. In Counter-Strike, being an in-game leader on a top roster is no easy task. You spend so much time thinking about the other side that your own fragging can take a back seat. But when you don't put up the stats that your fans expect, they can get vicious. Everybody respects someone that can lead by example. The most valuable possible player is someone that could adapt on the fly, come up with the strats, and carry their weight in kills all at the same time.
I don't even think James realizes he can actually save. He probably feels like there's presence in the B-bomb site, but the clutch is on.
Oh, that smoke, it catches the rail, and that's a little bit unfortunate. Otherwise, maybe he's going to try to put some pressure. He's still going to go for it. He picks up that one. Oh, no! Out of this world game!
Every team wants an IGL that can frag, but there's only so many seasoned veterans with cracked aim and beautiful minds to go around, so some teams need to get creative.
Hooksy plays plays deep in the pit. Nico far away. He's gonna flash Hooksy into T-Spawn.
No, as
Watch
if.
this.
As if. Hang on a moment. Oh, they're bringing out the big guns.
Yeah.
They've deployed their secret weapon. Hooksy running through the long doors with a flash from Nico to set him up.
Enter Rasmus Hooksy Nielsen, a man who by all accounts is not the mythical fragger IGL.
Surprised production didn't bring up his ADR there. Savage production. Alright, there it is.
Oh my god,
no.
why? Why?
He has less ADR than he has deaths. I don't even know what. That's some kind of record.
And yet, he's turned his greatest weakness into a strength.
Hooksy already countering the rotation through CT, fully up to the task. He gets 3 big money, honey, because they'll farm that with the MP9, and Nico is certainly ready with all of that information.
Mighty stuff there. Yeah, you're right, money. Hooksy doesn't need a drop. He can buy his own M4. He's an independent man.
Over the past few months, the CSGO community has witnessed the rise of one of the greatest memes in the game's history, all thanks to Hooksy and his performance on G2.
Now having to save his Crimbo.
LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga. It's a game that millions played upon original release, and 15 years later, nostalgia is driving another wave of popularity. As more people play LEGO Star Wars, a question emerges. How quickly can the game be beaten? The LEGO Star Wars speedrun has the precision of a 3D platformer combined with the glitches and tricks of a broken NES game. And for the past few years, a dedicated community of runners have been battling each other to take the world record lower. This is the history of LEGO Star Wars World Records. And now, a word from this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid playing special be helping me out quite a bit. Scan the QR code next. Let's clear up any confusion with the timeline of the series. LEGO Star Wars the video game was released in 2005, where you could play episodes 1 through 3. This was followed up by the original trilogy in 2006, with episodes 4 through 6 being playable. Finally, in 2007, these games were combined into LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga, allowing you to play through all 6 episodes. While the 3 versions are all speedran today, the most popular one by far is The Complete Saga, the topic of this video. Now, the earliest full game speedruns of The Complete Saga date back to 2013, but it's a bit of a hazy timeline. See, back then there was no concrete rule set. The initial method was to play through episodes 1 through 6 in order on the game's Super Story mode, which adds a timer to the bottom of the screen and doesn't have status screens between levels. Later, runners switched to playing the episodes on Replay Story, meaning you can use any red brick upgrade on any level. Since these records didn't have a standard rule set, and also some were filmed with a potato, we'll skip going over them in detail. However, serious props should be given to the record holders, Poshakt and Lexos, the champions of the Complete Saga's early era. For the next 2 years, no records would be set. But in 2015, the community began to form once again, and for the first time, standardized rules were created. All runs would be played on New Game instead of Replay Story. All red bricks, which are unlockables that give you a special ability, were banned, and you could only play with one player. Calling in player 2 at any point was disallowed. These rules formed the backbone of runs starting in 2015. And the first record to abide by them was played by SM Kirky, clocking in at 3 hours, 44 minutes, and 46 seconds. Now, this might seem long for a speedrun, but LEGO Star Wars is a long game. It has 36 levels, most of which take several minutes to get through. On top of that, there are also nearly an hour of unskippable cutscenes between the levels. So, how did SM Kirky speed the game up? Well, his general strategy can be seen in Negotiations, the first level in Episode 1. He killed enemies and built objects needed to progress, but beyond that, he was running through everything as fast as he could. Oftentimes, there was no need to actually kill enemies. You could just perform tasks and ignore them, and if you die, you quickly respawn and can keep going. In Level 2 of Episode 1, SM Kirky showed off quick platforming, jumping through the stage while avoiding slowdowns. Another simple strategy used was on bosses. On fights like Darth Maul and Jango Fett, SM Kirky used the Jedi Slash over and over, the most effective way to drain the health of bosses. So thus far, it seems that SM Kirky was still following all the rules of the game. He was just doing the minimum possible and optimizing everything for speed. But no, there's more SM Kirky did we've yet to discuss. Because like I said earlier, LEGO Star Wars is a broken video game. In Level 5 of Episode 2, you normally have to use one bomb to take out one side of the barrier, then go back and get a second bomb to take out the other side. However, the collision of the barrier stops extending out to the right once the right side is destroyed. So, by doing a precise spin move, you can make it around the barrier without having to backtrack for the second bomb. It's known as the 2-5 first barrier skip, and saves roughly 14 seconds. In Level 2 of Episode 4, you normally have to build and push a block to progress through the stage. But if you instead veer off to the left and double jump off of a slope in the wall, you can make it to a platform and skip right through it. Once again, this saves roughly 14 seconds. And in Episode 5, one of the biggest skips in SM Kirky's run takes place. To end Level 2, you have to get on top of the Millennium Falcon, and the intended method to do this involves unlocking a door to release animals and jumping off of their backs. Instead, SM Kirky precisely spaced a double jump to barely reach the top early, saving 40 seconds. In all, there were more than a dozen tricks like this across the run, adding up to minutes of time save. There's honestly too many of them to go over in depth here, but many of them followed the same pattern. Doing a precise jump somewhere you're not supposed to in order to skip doing something else that would take longer. We'll see more of these tricks later. But as a whole, SM Kirky's run was on another level compared to the runs from 2013. Fewer mistakes, more tricks, and a cleaner speedrun overall. It was a great starting point, and it stood as the record for almost a year. But in mid-2016, along came a player known as TSG. And what TSG did to the world record was this. In 2016, a runner named TSG came onto the scene. By June, he'd have the world record, and over the next year, he'd do that 9 more times. His dominance can be attributed to a few things. First, his skill level was well beyond that of any other runner. The only one who was close was SM Kirky, but he couldn't catch up. Second, this was an incredibly active period of discovery for the game. You'll see soon how many new tricks TSG was able to use. And third, TSG played the game on PC. This wasn't fully known at the time, but running the game on PC is much faster than any other version, mainly from having faster load times. TSG's first record was a 341.17, and after the first level, he was presented with the option to save or not. After you save for the first time, you lose a couple seconds from autosaving after every level. However, it does allow you to reset the game before a cutscene plays at the end of each episode, since your progress is saved before then. This allows you to more quickly start the next episode instead of watching a long cutscene, especially after episodes 3 and 5, and the time save is further compounded from the fast resetting that you can do on PC. And of course, he had a plethora of new strategies to use, particularly in episode 5. One was in stage 5-2. C-3PO can't jump, so you normally have to build a cart to take him up this ledge. But instead, TSG just punched him and pushed him up, saving roughly 22 seconds from not having to use the cart. And in 5-4, you normally have to have Yoda teach Luke the Force and build bridges for R2 to use. But why do that when you can just use bad collision detection in the wall and get up anyway? This was discovered by Grubo, and saves a solid 30 seconds. But the most notable trick in the run was one known as DV3, short for Darth Vader 3. In this form of the fight, you're supposed to deflect objects into Darth Vader, then eventually glass comes down and you can jump across. However, it's just barely possible to jump across without the glass, meaning you can skip the entire fight. You have 3 frames of leeway between the 2 jumps in the double jump, and it was easily the most difficult trick in the run. But if done properly, you would save over 70 seconds from not having to fight Darth Vader. And thanks to these 3 tricks and more, despite having some big slowdowns, TSG had his first world record. His record streak would continue over the fall. Over the following weeks, and the run had a couple major changes. First, he changed the episode order, playing episode 5 last. Players were allowed to play them in any order they wanted, but putting episode 5 at the end was beneficial since its ending cutscene was the longest, and timing stops before the cutscene plays. This way, it's not included anywhere in the final time. And the second change was the removal of a leaderboard rule. Red bricks were no longer banned. That meant he could use certain unlockables as he found them throughout the game. The 2 big ones he used were exploding blaster bolts, which lets you kill some enemies quicker and blow up certain barriers, and infinite torpedoes, which means you always have them behind you in the flying levels and don't have to go pick them up. Having these 2 upgrades across much of the run saved several minutes, and when combined with better execution of other tricks, allowed TSG to take the record under 3 hours and 30 minutes. New strategies were also getting discovered left and right, and in late 2016, one of the most obvious oversights from the developers was found by a player named ozela. On the last level of episode 1, you're supposed to fight Darth Maul by forcing objects into him. But over on the right, there's a lamp, and for some reason, everything below the lamp is considered by the game to be out of bounds. You can stand and jump in any out of bounds area, so it's possible to just jump off the wall to the top of the lamp and across to the other side. As simple as that, you could save 30 seconds. By April 2017, TSG had taken the record to 3 hours and 24 minutes, and with second place more than 7 minutes behind, he was in full control of the world record. However, in May, a key rule was lifted. Back in August 2016, the ban on red bricks was lifted, and now, players were allowed to call in the second player. Welcome to the world of 1 player 2 controller strats. So what's the benefit of using a second player? Well, LEGO Star Wars was designed to be a 2-player game, and some sections can be completed much faster with the second player. In 4-5, for instance, if you have 1 player, you're supposed to build a cart to go over buttons fast enough before they turn red. But if you're using 2 players, no need for the cart. There's a couple sets of these buttons in 4-5, and if you skip using the cart for both, you save a full minute. However, you're not allowed to have a physical second player to help you out. You have to do everything alone. So, whenever you want to call in player 2, you have to control them both at the same time. It's known as 1 player 2 controllers, or 1P2C, and on PC, there's 3 options for this. You can use 2 controllers, you can use 2 parts of the keyboard, or you can use a keyboard and a controller. Most runners nowadays go with the keyboard controller method, but in June 2017, TSG set a record with the controller method. The only point TSG used 1P2C in the run was in 4-5, but the community knew there could be applications elsewhere. Less than a month after TSG's run, it would be beaten by a new player, Rauschmore. He had been a contender for a while, but rapidly improved his personal best in mid-2017 to take the top spot. He too used 1P2C in stage 4-5, and thanks to a couple new strategies in episode 6, pulled ahead for a new world record by 90 seconds. However, TSG was up to the task, and just a week later he took the record back. By the end of the year, TSG's time was down to 3 hours, 19 minutes, and 30 seconds. The 3:19 run had a notable new trick in the first phase of the Darth Vader fight. After dealing 2 hearts of damage, Darth Vader jumps around and won't knock Luke's Stormtrooper helmet off. You can then use R2 to precisely land on the white part of the panel, then fly and avoid a death plane to barely make it to the other side. Once there, you activate a platform for Luke and open the door with the Stormtrooper helmet to skip nearly the entire fight. The trick, nicknamed DV1, saves 45 seconds and was discovered by a runner named Zolas. When combined with DV3, it was quite evident that stage 5-5 was becoming the most critical point of the run. Speaking of Zolas, he would set the game's next record, a 3:16.12. He implemented 1P2C across the run more. Some were small time saves, like deflecting shots so that R4 could safely activate the panel in 2-2, and others were more substantial. In 4-5, you could now use Chewbacca to activate the elevator and ride it immediately, instead of having to use Han Solo and wait for its second cycle. A time save of about 12 seconds. But interestingly, Zolas played the game on Wii. We know from before that this is slower than the PC version, but there's another consideration to be made. The Wii version requires using both the Wii Remote and the nunchuck, so to do 1P2C, you need to juggle 4 controllers at once. Still, Zolas was able to pull it off, with a world record by over 3 minutes. TSG followed this up a few months later with a 3:14.28. It was notable for implementing yet another trick into level 5-5. DV1 and DV3 already had skips, and now, Darth Vader's 4th form did as well. It was possible to do a couple of precise double jumps, and skip having to use the Force and having to use R2. They have the potential to save about 7 seconds, and just added to the skill needed in 5-5. Episode 5 as a whole was becoming really brutal, and since it has the longest end cutscene, it had to be at the very end of the run. So let's take a look at our timeline so far. TSG started dominating in mid-2016, and although he twice lost the record to Rauschmore and Zolas, he'd always been able to fight back. 2 years later, his name was still on top of the leaderboard. But TSG's 3:14 from June 2018 would be the last record he would ever set. The game was about to enter a new era, because in October 2018, Rauschmore did this. Over the span of just 3 weeks, Rauschmore took the record from a 3:14 down to a 3:09. The key was the rapid discovery of new tricks by a runner named L-Tree. Tricks that would save up to 8 minutes. And the first one is really stupid. In 6-5, killing the Emperor normally takes a substantial amount of time. However, if you lure him over to the corner and die intentionally, upon respawning, you can just push him off the edge. It skips the remainder of the fight and saves 45 seconds. Later, it was discovered you could push him off at the start of the fight by calling in player 2. It saves an additional minute and is known as the Ultra Kill. Another simple boss skip was found in 4-3. You can skip the spy fight by using the Force on R2. This pushes him past the trigger to start the fight, and if you call him in after, you can just go in the open door and save about 50 seconds. But the real big time save was in 6-3. In this level, you're supposed to hop in your speeder and drive through the roughly 5-minute course. Instead, if you go into the corner of the end barrier with both players, player 1 gets placed above player 2, and you can do a 360 to make it over the barrier. This activates the end of the course, and you can skip the entire thing to save several minutes. These discoveries helped lead to 4 consecutive records from Rauschmore. His 4th and final time, a 3:09 from October 2018, would be the final record set in the year. But interestingly, as the record stayed put at 3:09, the run started to get massive views on YouTube. It went semi-viral, and many people who saw the video thought it could be fun to try running it themselves. And largely thanks to Rauschmore's video, by early 2019, there was a new crop of runners ready to gun for the world record. In 5th place, there was Senor with a 3:11:37. In 4th place, there was Wii Super with a 3:10:45. In 3rd place, there was Osamnol with a 3:10:06. And in 2nd place, there was Shred with a 3:09:54. All 4 runners were closing in on Rauschmore's record, and it was obvious that one of them would beat it soon. The general consensus for the favorite to do so was Osamnol, but all 4 of them had a shot at it. And then, one of them broke through. On February 11th, 2019, Senor jumped straight from 5th to 1st place to capture his first world record. He lowered his personal best by nearly 2.5 minutes in the process. Senor had gotten into the game after seeing Rauschmore's video, and although he lowered his time quickly, he was comfortably behind the other record contenders. But the key to Senor getting this record was 1P2C. He used it all over the run. He used it for multitasking, he used it to get one player in position while the other player built, he used it to push characters further ahead. These were small time saves on their own, but they added up when used across a 3-hour run. This was also the first run to use the incredibly difficult disco skip in 6-2. After building the speaker, you then try and position Luke so he's exactly 50% inside of the speaker once it's finished being built. The game doesn't know what to do when you're inside a built object, so if you're next to a wall, it will sometimes push you through it, meaning you can go out of bounds and skip building the disco party to save 40 seconds. This is a really precise trick, since you have to be positioned just right to clip out of bounds, but if you miss it, you can just break the speaker and build it to try again. With all the competition from top runners, people didn't expect Senor's record to last long, but it would only last for 3 days. On Valentine's Day 2019, Shred took the record with a 3:06:27. Shred had been running the game for over a year, but only became a serious record contender early in 2019. And his record was an improvement by nearly 3 minutes, which was especially impressive given that it was played on a Wii. It didn't do much new over Senor's record, but was better executed. It had a first try ultra kill and a cleaner episode 6 overall. Senor fired back just 3 days later with another 2-minute record improvement. The world record was now down to a 3:04, but it still had some significant slowdowns. Senor lost nearly a minute on disco skip, and over 30 seconds in 5-5 from missing the DV skips. So clean up those tricks, save a bit elsewhere, and add in a couple new strategies. And suddenly, sub 3 didn't seem out of the question. In March 2019, 2 runners started to pull ahead from the rest of the pack, Senor and Wii Super. Both of these guys had only gotten into the game in the last few months, but they lowered their times side by side and got good quickly.